See, it's stuff like this that gives me trust issues.
Welcome to the Trust Issues podcast. We have trust issues with the traditional society-dictated path, with the status quo, with the whole get an education, land a job, and work tirelessly until you're 6 feet under. It's time to upgrade your life with the help of us. I'm Erica.
And I'm Kyle Auckland. We're a husband and wife duo, but we're also entrepreneurs, biohackers, and business builders.
Every week, we're dedicated to having purposeful conversations with each other and leading experts on topics like wellness, relationships, and entrepreneurship.
Subscribe to Trust Issues Podcast if you're looking for bold topics, honest dialogue, and valuable lessons.
Welcome back to another episode of the Trust Issues Podcast. I'm Erica.
And I'm Kyle Auckland.
And earlier this week, we told our birth story. We told our birth story of our son and the raw and the real. It was really one of the most empowering experiences of my life. And natural physiological birth is something I'm super passionate about, especially after having experienced it myself. And today we're so excited to welcome Karen Welton to the podcast. She is, hello, thanks for being here. She is the founder of Pain-Free Birth, whose mission is to shift the global culture of birth out of fear and into faith and confidence. When she was pregnant with her first baby, she was scared, like most women are, of the pain of childbirth. That is until she discovered a secret, that birth doesn't have to be painful. Since she has had 3 pain-free births, and she has created the Pain-Free Birth course to teach women how to do it as well without medication. And personally, we took the course together,
Yes.
And it truly was so pivotal and crucial for the birth that I had. Just understanding what my body was going to go through, understanding the different phases of labor, understanding how I could prepare my mindset before labor and before birth was so key for me, especially because I had a challenging birth. My son had his hands on his face, and we definitely had a challenging birth together. I mean, Kyle was there for every single part of it. And so if you are pregnant and you're listening, or you're thinking about becoming pregnant, this episode is for you. You have to listen through. I know you're going to be empowered after listening to Karen talk about pain-free birth. So welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
So can you, just to kick it off, you are someone who has experienced your own births. And I think that is so key because you are teaching something that you know and that you've experienced. So can you share your experience and how you've managed to have 3 pain-free births and how this has led to where you're at today and teaching women all over the world to do it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in the same boat as many women are when they get pregnant for the first time, having not experienced birth myself or really witnessed any births firsthand, other than maybe a few scary birth videos from high school health class that they show you to try to use it as birth control, and so you hear them screaming and it's all horrifying, and their motive is like scare young teenagers away from birth. And so that was like essentially my experience with birth. So not good, as many of us grow up believing these things and hearing the horror birth stories and seeing the movies and all of that. And so I was nervous for sure. Like, I don't know if my body can do this. I don't know if I can handle the pain. What if something goes wrong? I grew up hearing my mom's birth story about she had excruciating back labor with me, and it was this long, laborious, intensive experience. And so, we have all of these things we kind of carry with us into our own birth, not even knowing it. It's in our subconscious. And so I really, from the beginning though, there was this I have this thing where I'm like, I'm going to challenge this narrative. Like I have a question about this. Is this really true? Like, does this line up with who I believe God to be, how he created my body, and what birth is supposed to be like? Like, does it always have to be painful? And so I really just began this journey, started researching and digging into it and getting lots of materials and Ina May Gaskin and hypnobirthing, like just all the techniques, all the tools that were out there, and really began to understand the physiology of birth and how my body was created. And also I just researched tons of other birth stories of women who had had pain-free births, because I thought, if I can talk to somebody who had a pain-free birth, I'll know that if it's possible for her, it's possible for me. And I actually went on a hunt to find as many birth stories as I could, which is why I share so many birth stories on my account, because I know how powerful it is when you're there and you're pregnant and you're preparing for your own birth. And so fast forward to my birth, I moved during that time I was pregnant from a lot of fear and just kind of ignorance, not knowing what birth was really about and how to do it and what to expect, and moved from that into a place of it almost felt like divine confidence. And that's kind of the only way. I've never called it that before, but it really felt like there was this anchored truth in my heart that I just knew I can do this. And it might be a little painful, it might not, but I really felt like my body is created for this and it knows what to do, even if my brain doesn't know what to do. And I just anchored into that truth and was really believing and praying for a pain-free birth. But when my labor started with my first daughter, it was painful, and I am totally open and honest about this. Like in the middle of the night, I remember this is early labor, contractions hurt. And I was like, what's happened? This is not what I was planning for. And I'm like trying to move and get away from the pain and like cope with it. And it just wasn't working. It was hurting. And I was like bracing for it, I noticed. And I just kind of like prayed, and I heard very clearly in my spirit, embrace it. Because I'm like, this ain't working for me. Like, let's tell me what to do, God. And I heard embrace it. And I thought, well, I started to argue, like, I don't want to embrace it. It hurts. Why would you embrace something that's hurting you? And that really is the catch-22 with many birth experiences, is that we feel the pain, we get afraid of the pain, we tense up in anticipation of the pain, and that tension in our body creates more pain. By the time the next contraction rolls around, we're already tensed up, we're already bracing for it. And that is the fear, tension, pain cycle. And so something that I talk a lot about on my account and in my courses. But I was doing it, even with all the faith, with all the confidence. I was totally in that fear, tension, pain cycle in early labor. And I knew that. And that was kind of nerve-wracking, because I'm like, wait a second, if this is early labor, what is transition going to feel like?
There's a long way to go.
There's a long way to go. Like, I know this is still really early. So like, I got to figure this out right now. It was kind of like, okay, the rubber meets the road. I did all my prep. I did all my, I got my head in the game. I'm ready. I'm excited. Really, I was excited for birth. And here I am. And I'm like, wait, hold on. let me figure this out. So this like divine instruction comes in, like, embrace it. And I go, okay, all right, fine. I'm not going to argue with you. Like, I got about 30 seconds till the next contraction. I'm just going to try it. So I just take a deep breath. I feel it start to build. And instead of like going like this and bracing for it and holding my breath in and tensing, I went, okay, relax, like, embrace it, welcome it in. And it took so much mental energy to honestly do that. But I experienced this contraction swell within my body and build in intensity and roll over me. And as I embraced it in, it did not hurt. And I'm like, well, that was probably a fluke. Let's try that again. Let's see if that works on the second one. And I did it again. Lots of like focus and concentration in order to really welcome it in and embrace it and relax. And that one didn't hurt either. And I was like, okay. All right, God, let's see how this goes. Like, let's try it out. And then, it just kept going. And throughout labor, they got more and more intense. They got closer together. And I had a long labor. It was about 16 or 20 hours. I can't remember. It wasn't by any means like one of those short, like 3-hour births and that I post, the stories of it. I have long births, and they got longer the more kids I had. So that was fun. Wow. Yeah. So for me, it was more like about endurance. But once it locked in, once that muscle memory kicked in, I will say the several hours of working with my body took a lot of mental concentration. But then by active labor, it was just muscle memory. And I just was staying in the flow. And at one point in the birth, I remember thinking okay, there was always this fear kind of in the back of my head that was it's going to get worse. Okay, you got it now, but this isn't real labor yet. Once real labor hits, then it's going to hurt. And there was always that okay, it's working now, but let's wait and see, right? And so I asked my midwife to check me at a certain point. and I was like 7 or 8 centimeters dilated. And I was thrilled. I was like, because I was waiting. I didn't want to be disappointed and be like 3 or 4 centimeters and, oh no, I have so much more to go. And that whole like letdown, you know, like you hear about that. So I waited until it was like, this feels like it's pretty far along. And they were kind of wondering where I was at. And it was a home birth as well. That's a whole nother story. I switched to having a home birth at like 34 weeks because I really wanted to. It was late in the game. I was scheduled to be in the hospital and with a midwifery group that I really love and trusted. I knew one of the midwives there, and it was a lovely group. But my spirit was like, you need a water birth. There was something about the water that I was like, it just drew me in, and I wanted that gentle, natural experience for my baby and I to be birthed in the water, and that wasn't an option in the hospitals in my city. So lo and behold, after a lot of prayer and consultations and convincing my husband, we went for a home birth, and it really felt like for a full circle because my mom always wanted a home birth, but it never worked out for her to have it, and so I just really trusted. We were also really close to a local hospital, so I thought, okay, I'm a first-time mom. If we need to, it's 5 minutes away. We can just transfer. And I didn't even really ask all the questions I probably should have that I coach my clients to ask, because at that time I just knew, like, my body knows what to do. It's gonna work. I can't even, like, there was a lot I didn't even know then still that I've learned throughout supporting women over the last 10 years and having 2 more babies. But essentially, back to the story, she checked me. She said, you're 7 or 8 centimeters. And they were surprised because I was managing them pretty well. Like, it didn't look like I was in active labor. I mean, I was concentrating and they were coming and they were intense, but I wasn't in pain. I didn't experience pain during any of these contractions. And so it was a lot of intensity. It was a lot of like pressure building and like, you know, almost like a period cramp, but like you can feel it was almost bigger than that. Like the whole uterus would just tighten and pull up, and then like it would get really intense and big and tight, and then it would release, but it wasn't painful. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. And so when they checked me and I realized this is that part I've been waiting for, that I keep saying is out there, it's now. And it's happening, and it's actually working. Because it was always this like, oh, it's let's wait and see. It's gonna the active labor is coming later, right? Like, and I realized like, no, it's now, and it's working, and I'm not in pain. And that was the moment I realized like everything I'd been praying for, everything I'd been preparing for, was happening, and I was not in pain. I'm in active labor. This is the real deal. You know, the proof of concept. You are 8 centimeters. Like, we're going for this. Yeah. And it wasn't hurting. And I remember being on my hands and knees, and I'm like, this is fun. Like, I got this burst of oxytocin because I got so excited that this is actually working and actually happening. And I just remember like feeling like this is fun. And then I'm like, well, you must be crazy. Like, people don't have fun in active labor. What is wrong with you? And I'm like, you got to say that out loud because you'll never believe it. And I had this whole argument in my head, like, what are my doulas going to think if I say it? Like, this is fun. I eventually said, like, just say it. So you don't doubt it later. Yeah. So I blurted out, I'm having fun. And, transition came. I remember they were back to back. They were 90-second, long contractions, and they were taking my breath away. And there was this point where I said, okay, I cannot hold on to control. Like, if I try to control this for one moment of my being and hold on or brace anything, it's going to hurt. So I had to like completely surrender in those moments. And I remember the pushing surges were super intense. Like, I would almost categorize that as like, that hurt just because the intensity was so strong. But I didn't actively push until like the very end, like the last 2 or 3 contractions. And then I felt her shift down, like the mass and the like presence and density of this being in my body would just like shoot, that feeling is just bizarre. I don't know if you experienced that. I mean, you probably had different experiences with a nuchal hand and all of that crazy situation, but I just remember feeling like, whoa. And I could feel her kicking off the top of my uterus to push herself out. Wow. Like, just the most, almost like it was out of body. I just zoned out, went into another dimension. And would open my eyes occasionally, look around and be like, wow, everybody's surrounding me and supporting me. And it was so like beautiful and holy and sacred. And she came out. Those contractions were quite intense. It wasn't until my third birth that I really learned the techniques that I teach now on physiological pushing, where you use your breath. And that was that was a total game changer. That's another story. But essentially I got, she came out and had that water birth at home, had that oxytocin high, and I felt like, wow, it just, like, her birth shifted everything for me, and it gave me this confidence as a new mom to go, if I can do that, if I can push a baby out of my body, I can do freaking anything. Yes. And just the ecstasy, the joy, the like accomplishment of something that I did completely in my own body. There was never a point where I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to give up. I need to go to the hospital and get an epidural. I don't know what I'm doing. There was just it was all in here. And like, I had support. I had 2 doulas. I had my husband, but it was almost just like internally in my own my world in my body. It was a very small, like, bubble of like me and my body talking, communicating, me and my baby talking, communicating. And okay, all right. I trust you. I really trust. Holy cow, that was a strong one. Now I trust you even more. Like, let's do this. And it was such an incredible experience and an empowering experience that it lit this fire in me to help other women and to tell other women that, like, birth doesn't have to be the way we've been told. It doesn't have to be traumatizing and scary and,
right.
And tear your body open and have medications and like disconnected and disassociated and have all this fear that we're just carrying with us into our births because we've been told all these things and seen it in the movies. I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way. And I have to tell women, I have to tell people there's another way. There's another way you can do this, and your body was created for this, and you don't have to be afraid of childbirth.
Wow.
So good.
I mean, there is so much I want to unpack here because I'm just like, I'm obsessed with this conversation. And, because I can relate with, it's so crazy because years ago, I was the girl who said, I'm going to opt for a cesarean because I'm so afraid of childbirth. I used to have so much fear. Remember?
I remember. Yep.
I used to have so much fear around the idea of birth that it actually inhibited me from really like allowing myself to want children.
Yeah.
And something shifted in me really starting at the pandemic, honestly, where I think so many of us were home and there was just so much going on in the world. And it was the day that I found out I was pregnant, I knew, like, in my spirit, I'm having a home birth. Like, it was like, because I had taken a lot of time the years prior to connect with myself, connect with my body, heal my body, really like face a lot of things that I was ignoring. When I found out I was pregnant, which was a surprise, it was unplanned pregnancy, the best gift ever. I knew in that moment I'm having a home birth, and immediately that exact same day I texted a friend who had a home birth locally where I live in Nashville. I needed the contact for the midwifery. I need to get on their waiting list because I know they have one. And I just knew instantly. But even with all the prep work that I did as well, it's like that old me was trying to come up in my birth, and the fear that I had, or like, and I remember there was one moment that I was just like in it and I was trying to fight it. And I said to my midwives, I was like, can I do this? And she's like, you are doing this.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was like that moment that just like shifted it for me. I'm like just let go. And for the rest of the labor, I really tried to just have my hands open, and I just kept telling God, like, I surrender, like, you're in control, like, my body knows what to do, my baby knows what to do. And it was like, and it really was that the last tail end of my birth, I got the same hit of oxytocin, of just like, I'm doing this is happening, and just this trust and belief that my body was capable. And it was literally the biggest high of my life. And afterwards I was like, I can't wait to do that again. Like, and I remember like holding my new baby and I'm like, I can't wait to do this again. Like such a psychopath, I'm like still bleeding. But so you talked about some of so I want to pull it back to when someone finds out they're pregnant and they're on the line, they're considering like, okay, I think I might want to do a physiological birth, maybe it's a birthing center, maybe it's a home birth, I would like to dive into a little bit of like the benefits of that, because I think every woman innately, like deep inside of us, there is that, like what you said, it's like this divine confidence. We do know that our body is capable. Why else would we be able to carry children? Like, we do know our body's capable, but I think there's, because of society and because of so many societal fears put on us, it's like we just kind of reach for what we feel is what we're supposed to do. So for the woman who's listening and she is like, I'm thinking about attempting a pain-free physiological birth, what are some things you would tell her to say, like, you can do this? Maybe there's some statistics you can share. I know you share a lot of that on your page, but just some benefits of why this is something that each woman deserves to experience and can experience.
Yeah, that's such a good question. I would just start with like unpacking what's really in your heart first. I mean, the first step is always great to just begin consuming content of birth, all kinds of birth. You go on YouTube, go on Paying for Birth on my account, go on whatever birth account you want, and just consume birth content and pay attention to what speaks to your heart, because there are going to be births that affect you that you're like, wow, that's really scary. That might trigger you. That might make you feel really nervous. Something else might make you feel like, oh, I want that kind of birth. And that's what I was unknowingly doing by watching birth videos, was like, I want that. And I asked women, how do you want to feel in labor? And when we can actually connect to intuitively how we want to feel in labor, then you can begin to design the kind of birth experience you want. And because that's what it really comes down to. There are women who feel much safer in a hospital setting, and there are women who feel much safer and more free in a home birth setting. And whether you choose drugs or not, like, first of all, it's like we have to connect to what we want as women, and there's no shame or like you should do this or should do that. That's why I share hospital birth, home birth, all kinds of births, because like everyone has something in them that is their own unique desire. And I do believe that there is like a physiology and a blueprint for birth. And when we can tap into that and support that, it goes much more smoothly. And the statistics and the studies all show that. So if you're allowing the natural hormonal physiology of labor to progress on its own without interfering in that process with drugs, and drugs do interrupt that process, and not that there's any shame in getting drugs or pain medication or interventions at all. There's many times where it's beneficial and helpful and useful. So like, break that off if you're like, oh, I want to do it, but I don't know if I can, and what if I feel bad and let myself down, and do I have to prove something? Like, just forget all that. Like, just go deeper past those layers of like shoulds, would, coulds, like the fears, and to really tap into like, what do I really want? What do I want to feel in labor? What kind of birth experience do I want to have? What kind of birth experience do I want to give my baby? And when you really connect to that, like for me, like that's where it got real. I was like, I don't want my baby yanked on and tugged on. I don't want my baby having Pitocin-induced contractions where they're being like shaken and, pushed so violently that they go into fetal distress. And these are just very normal things that happen in typical medicated hospital births. I want my baby to be born into a water environment where it's gentle and smooth. I want my baby to feel my love and confidence during my labor and not feel my fear and my anxiety or the anxiety of others in the room and the energy they're carrying. I want my baby to have a smooth transition. I want to feel empowered and autonomous and free to move and free to do what I want and not have to worry about who's going to come in and who's going to, check on me, or a stranger or a resident that I don't know, or being put on a timeline. And so the more you educate yourself as to what true physiological birth looks like and what your body is capable of, you begin to see that all of this stuff we do to women in labor and to birth is largely unnecessary. And a lot of it is based on a fear-based maternity care where we're managing women in labor. And as soon as we step in and manage them, that's what disrupts the physiological process. And that disruption causes pain in labor and for labor to stall or slow down. When you think about the animals in the wild, like every mammal, and we are mammals, every mammal, when they go into labor, is going to retreat and find a quiet, dark, private place to give birth to their young. That is just innate intuition. that is how they know my body labors best, and I need this protected private space, and they don't doubt, can I do this? Is it going to be too painful, or am I going to be able to push my baby out? Like, they don't even think about that. They're just mammals. They go into the wild, they find a little cove in the woods, and they give birth. But as humans, we've been taught and conditioned to fear birth. We have been taught that it's this dangerous emergency act, and not to say that emergencies don't happen. Just like in the wild, complications happen, and we do need medical care. But it's in like maybe less than 5% of labors truly need medical intervention, compared to the 95% of labors that receive medical intervention today in our modern maternity care. So it's completely backwards, and we have disrupted and meddled and managed with a natural birth process that, for the most part, does not need any medical assistance. Now, if you want the assistance, if you want the pain medicine, praise God, it's there. Like, we have that opportunity, that blessing in America, in a first world country or wherever you live, to have that choice. And that's 100% your choice. But most women don't need it if they can tap into, like, the good drug hormones that are already naturally in your body that block pain naturally. So, and we just aren't told about that. And so we're taught and conditioned that that birth has to be this scary, traumatic, horrible thing. And I don't even want to have babies because of all the scary stories I've heard, or I'm just going to get a C-section, like you said. Like, I hear that all the time. And what we have to recognize is that this is cultural conditioning, number one. Like, mammals don't fear birth. And even women in other countries that have a positive view of childbirth don't fear birth, and their statistics, their birth outcomes are radically different than ours, which is really a fascinating conversation all in itself. But we have to recognize that we've been conditioned to believe this way about birth, and to be willing to change our mindset about what we believe birth to be. And if you're willing to do that and really hold birth loosely, and hold what you believe to be true loosely and what you've been told loosely, and go, okay, I'm just going to question this. Like, I'm just going to say, like, I have a feeling your listeners are pretty intelligent with, like, I don't know if I believe what I'm being told in the media and the news by the world, like, with all this fear. I mean, people are at this point where they're like, I'm going to call BS. Like, I just don't believe what these large organizations and government organizations and all this media, like, what everybody's telling me about birth, to fear my own body. Like, there's this rising tide of women who are doubting the status quo, like, and what they've been fed and told all their life, and going, you know what? There is something in me. There is something in me that is crying out for truth, crying out for freedom, crying out for autonomy, for someone to believe in me and tell me that this is possible. And you know, like, if you're listening to this, you're hearing my voice right now, and you know, like, there is something she's saying, or that Erica is saying, that is hitting me in the gut, and I just feel like there's more truth here that I need to unpack. There is a whole package for you, girl. Girlfriend. There is so much more. And the benefits of physiological birth are so incredible. I mean, you touched on them just a little bit. We talked about the drugs, the ecstasy, the bliss. When you have an unmedicated birth, your body releases huge surges of oxytocin in labor and immediately after birth. And it is the best high you will ever have. It is. I've heard it's like 50 times greater than taking cocaine, which releases serotonin and oxytocin in your brain.
I've never taken cocaine.
Well, I remember how,
Me
like,
neither.
calm and happy you were after.
I will tell you, I felt high. I was like on a cloud. I was floating. I was so happy.
And that's part of the design. It's part of this hormone that is designed to bond mother and baby together, because this baby is born helpless. And it without mom, like in the wild, like, babies are born, they get up and walk day one, or they'll be eaten by a predator. But in the human world, our babies can't walk for a whole year, and they're completely dependent on us. So how do we ensure their survival? Well, I believe God just thought, okay, well, let's give them tons of oxytocin and bond them together. And so when you have a hormonally healthy mother and a hormonally healthy birth, you have a really smooth postpartum period, generally speaking. Now, that's obviously, there's exceptions, but you're setting yourself up for a better postpartum experience. You have a huge reduction in postpartum depression rates. You have a huge increase in breastfeeding success because those hormones flow right into postpartum and benefit the breastfeeding experience. And you also get those pumps of oxytocin every time you breastfeed. So the more you bond to baby and breastfeed and nurse and look baby in the eye, it's the human connection hormone. So you're producing more oxytocin by doing the things that oxytocin makes you want to do naturally. And it's this like cycle of hormonal maternal, it's the mother-infant dyad that is so sacred that we have just like bulldozed in the medical community. There is no respect for the mother-infant dyad in birth. As soon as that baby's out, they like to clamp the cord, or even if they say, oh, we do delayed cord clamping, maybe it's 90 seconds or 60 seconds, and then we take that baby to the warmer, or we're just doing a bunch of stuff. We're rubbing the baby. We're just checking and poking and prodding and suctioning, and it's like, no, the physiology takes care of the mucus, the water in the lungs, the breathing, the crawl reflex, the nursing, like there are so many incredible reflexes that just kick on. And when these hormones are playing out naturally, it's a blueprint for mom and baby, and it works incredible. And it blocks pain when you have these high levels of endorphins and oxytocin in your body. Your body can stretch and open it 10 centimeters. Like, that's amazing. Our bodies are incredible. We should be talking about how incredible our woman's body is and not making, but instead we tell them, oh, you're cursed. There's a curse on you for childbirth, and you should complain every month for having a period because it's what a headache and what an inconvenience. And we have this culture of complaining about our pregnancies, complaining about our periods, complaining about our being a woman, and it's being just stripped away, that confidence. And we need an infusion of confidence and truth about what we're really capable of, and that it's not something we have to figure out with our head. Like, it is, the blueprint is in there. It's in the code of your hormonal physiology that your body knows exactly what to do at birth.
Wow. Well, this is so good. But leading into the next thing I wanted to ask is on the basis of support. So, like, even you said with your first child, I think you said getting your husband to agree to do a home birth and be a part of that. When Erica originally brought that to me, she's like, hey, like, I want to do a home birth. And, I know she was already reading up about it and really getting into it. It was like a no-brainer to me because I'm like, all right, she's going to be the one going through, all of this, giving birth. So I'm like,
he was so supportive.
Well, that's where I was like, I don't want to just agree to what she's going to do for her choice with this. Like, I want to support her in this. Wow. So I wanted to like actively be a part of that, because I know the closer we were with this and on the same page, like, the better success she was going to have. Yeah. So I guess just asking you, like, what are some things husbands or spouses can do to support this, like get on board with this, not just to be like, okay, hon, yeah, you can do that, but more like, yeah, I want to do this with you. How, like, what can I do to read up on this? So I don't know, just like elaborate on that of like what men can do in this, on the other side of this.
Oh my gosh. I absolutely love that question. And the fact that you basically did that for her is like incredible, because I don't, truly husbands don't always do that. And there's a lot of fear as well in the partners that they have their own perspectives and things that they've been told about birth. And in many cases, the partner, their way of protecting their wife and their unborn child is, we have to be in a hospital setting, right? Like, I'm doing the responsible thing, and we should go to the hospital, or you should get the epidural, or you shouldn't get the epidural. Like, I've heard it both ways based on whatever their perception of birth is. And so to the partners or the husbands, I'd say the same thing. Like, be willing to question your beliefs and your perspective of birth, and lean on your wife, who intuitively knows what is best for her and her baby.
And that's what I felt.
Yeah, and I just feel like I celebrate that you did that, and I just honor that, because that isn't something every partner does, but it shows great humility and wisdom on your part to trust her in her intuition. And a mother's intuition is powerful. Like, it breaks my heart when I see women who tell me, I really want to have this kind of birth experience, but my partner won't let me, or I can't get him on board.
Yeah.
And the first thing you have to understand as a birth partner is that your wife's autonomy and your confidence in her intuition is going to make a huge impact on her labor. And if you're doubting her and if you're holding her back and you're causing, fear, or trying to like insert or project your fear onto her, that's actually going to inhibit her stepping out, rising into the mother she's called to be if she feels constricted and pulled down.
Well, and I always look at things from like a sports point of view. So it's like,
that's Kyle's background,
sports and training. So like I looked at it, I'm like, all right, let's say Erica's going into her championship match. Like she's ready, to win it all. And then I come over and I'm like, I don't know if you can do this.
Oh yeah.
Like what would that do? You know what I mean? Like that would have like
crushed me.
Yeah. So I'm like, from the very start, I was like, okay, I want to be supportive, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know the thing. So I took the course with her, and then even on like social media, I started following certain pages and just reading about things. And
I think a lot of partners have never seen a birth before, so they don't.
I didn't really see anything.
Don't know what to expect, and so I will say like that was so monumental and pivotal for my birth because he had seen it. He had watched birth videos. Mm-hmm. He watched them with me, and he was like, okay, I know what to expect. So when I'm in early labor, when I'm going into active labor, when I'm in transition, when I'm throwing up, I throw up so much in my labor. He wasn't alarmed. He was like, okay, like this is what is supposed to happen because your body is going through this physiological process and this is natural. So he really was there for it. Even
to the point when we were on the couch and it started and you're like, oh my word, there's something in the toilet. And I like stood up. I was like, that's the mucus plug.
He was so excited.
I was like, it's happening.
I love it. You even knew what it was called. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, getting educated is one of the best things a birth partner can do because when you're not freaking out in labor, especially when it's intense, like your wife needs you to be there for her and be solid. And if you're trying to hold it together and like freaking out, wondering, is something wrong? Is this okay? Is this normal? Is this an emergency? Should we intervene? Should I do something? Am I doing enough? Or you feel powerless, and there's all of this doubt and anxiety and fear inside. It's harder for you to be solid for your wife. But let me tell you, men, like when you are solid in your masculinity, in your confidence in her most of all, she will feel that. And when she's wavering and she's doubting and her brain is acting up going, hey, can you really do this? Hey, that was too intense. I don't know if you can do that next. I don't know if you can make it to the end. What if this, like all of those fears are going to pop up and those little annoying thoughts. She needs to feel your presence. She needs to feel your confidence. And that is like the best thing you can do is to get really familiar with what physiological or normal birth looks like without all the interventions, to know, oh, no, this is totally normal. No, you can totally do this. Like when you have no doubt and no hesitation that she can do what she's doing, she's going to feel that. And that's going to give her so much like confidence and erase the self-doubt that she may be battling inside that you can't see. So that voice of like, I trust your intuition. Like if you feel like home birth is right, I support you. Like, or even just be honest, say like, you know what, I'm not sure about that. That makes me nervous, but I'm willing to do more research and look up the stats and understand the safety and what the risks are. Because there are risks for birth in a hospital. There are risks for birth at home. They are different, but they are worth having a conversation about. Like that is something I talk about a lot in the course. And there's certain risks that are higher with hospital. Almost all risks are actually lower in a home birth. Mm-hmm. And the fetal death rate is no higher at home, even though we're told, oh, your baby's going to die if you have a home birth. But that's not true. We have huge studies that show that with a skilled provider, there's no increase in maternal mortality or fetal mortality. And there's a far higher decreased, there's a much, more decreased rate in any intervention like a cesarean, episiotomies, forceps deliveries, vacuum deliveries, epidural rates, like all of those things. And so home birth is just a smart use of resources. If you don't need the medical intervention, you don't necessarily have to be in a medical setting to get it. You can always go to the medical setting to get it. And there's very few emergencies where it's like life or death, that baby's going to demise within 30 seconds. Like the midwives will be checking those heart tones throughout the whole birth. And there's not much different that they do in home birth setting that they would do in a hospital setting for a physiological birth. So, there's lots more we could talk about with that, but addressing those fears and being willing to confront your own fears and get educated is going to go a long way to allow the birth partner to really be present and like energetically confident and supportive of your woman in labor.
Yeah. And I got to experience that. And I can say it was like, Kyle was my coach. He was Coach Kyle. He was in my ear. He was like, you can do this. I did have an amazing doula, but Kyle was my doula as well. Like I had two doulas. I had you in my ear being like, you can do this. That was everything, because the mental component, it plays, your mind does play tricks on you, and it's like your body can do so much more than sometimes your mind will allow or your mind will convince you of. And I can say that you supporting me and being in your masculine and like being there for every bit of it was like,
I remember specifically like sitting there watching your mind like play tricks with you throughout the night. Like I could see it, and I remember there was actually like, it was like a gut feeling, like you'd be sitting there with the doula, and I remember being like, I need to trade places with her because I need to be the one doing the support right now. Like not her. Like I had to be,
he was
be there. Yeah.
Everything. So in your course, you talk a lot about, we went through the course. It was freaking phenomenal.
Yes.
I truly feel like it was so important for me to go through that, knowing what I like, not knowing what I didn't know, right? It's like, you don't know what you don't know. So that gave me so much just like foreground for what I was going to go through, what my body was going to go through. And I think it's like, it's healthy expectation of, it's going to be super intense. But you talk a lot about, natural pain management techniques, and you talk a lot about the different types of breathing. So I know we're not going to be able to go through all of them, but what are some of the main ones that you think are really powerful for moms to know? And they can get all of them in your course, but is there a couple that you really love to teach women so that they can know, like, these are some coping ways that you can cope, here's some ways that you can breathe, things that are going to help you have an easier physiological birth?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I teach, so I guess I could share like one of the breathing techniques I teach is first it's like, you have to get your mindset right. Like I can't just, if you're here and you're like, oh, I'm just going to learn the technique and not change my mindset about birth, let me just stop you right there, because that fear is going to sabotage and override all these new techniques you have. So like, that's why I focus on mindset and on understanding the hormonal physiology, so you know what your body's doing, you know what hormones you need to have in labor, you know what you need to think in labor and what thoughts are going to sabotage you, and you can call it out. Like that is honestly 80% of the game. The 20%, the 10% is the techniques. And those techniques are really effective. But like a lot of it is the inner work we do, and that's not something we can rush. But as far as techniques go, I think a big one is really learning the breath work. And so when I'm coaching women, it's learning how to breathe deeply into our womb space and not shallow breathing in our chest, which is what you'll do if you're scared or nervous. It's like, that's like the panicky like breath. And as a coach and an athlete, Kyle, you probably know, like, okay, that's not going to help you run a marathon. You're going to pass out.
Yes, exactly.
And this is like running a marathon. So like being conditioned physically with breath work is really important, and knowing like here, and even strength training I would recommend, like, so you can have the freedom of movement that you want to have in labor and have a healthy pregnancy where you're not having all kinds of complications or swelling, but like just being, prepared mentally, spiritually, physically is important. And the breath work is deep, breathing deep. So we can practice right now. It's really simple. It's like in for 4, 1, 2, here, let me start again. I was like, not ready. So here we go. We're going to count to 4 and breathe in. And as we breathe in, we're going to inflate. I want you to imagine your belly inflating like a balloon. And your breath is not going to go in your chest. It's going to go all the way down into your womb space between your hips. And then we're going to exhale, counting backwards from 4, but twice as slow. So I'll just model it with you guys. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, your belly inflates, and breathing out slowly through your nose, 4, 3, 2, 1, and in through your nose, 1, 2, 3, 4, and extend that breath, breathe out, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now just do like a body check. How do you feel?
relaxed.
Calm.
I did so much of this breathing to prepare. It's like taking me back. But it's so relaxing. It's so calming.
And that was only 2 breaths. Imagine like how quickly you can shift a labor that's going downhill, that's really painful, that's really feels chaotic, feels anxiety ridden, like, and you have a lot of pain, and it's really hard. It's really hard to do this when you're in pain. But I'm telling you, like, if you can, once you lock into this relaxation zone, it's so much easier to maintain it once you get there. And then I teach techniques on how to use that breath work with the timing of the contractions and knowing when to sink in, like I have the graphs and the time, like there are techniques that will help every contraction be pain-free, where you can literally ride those waves with your breath work, with being present in your body. This is not like numb yourself to the pain, like disconnect from your body the way that like an epidural would do for you. Yeah. This is being fully present in your body and fully in your body, experiencing the surge of power happening inside of you and not being afraid of it, and actually harnessing that power and being totally loose and open. And when we're in a state of relaxation mentally, our bodies and our body and our muscles relax. When our muscles are relaxed, they're able to open. So those contractions are actually going to become more effective in opening and dilating you when you're in a state of relaxation like this. And you can even use the breath work to shoot your energy down into like your perineum. And I teach a different breathing technique for pushing that's really intense. And I didn't learn that until the 3rd birth, where it's like you direct that breath energy really sharply way down to like the perineum where your baby's head is. And when I did that, it like I could feel my body almost just open, and because the pelvic floor is not designed to push. The way they teach you how to push in the hospital is incredibly damaging. It's actually dangerous to mom and baby. It's going to damage your pelvic floor. That's why we have a whole generation of women with incontinence that pee when they sneeze. And that's why we have babies going into fetal distress. Even though mom made it to 10 centimeters and she's fully dilated, heart rate's dropping, emergency cesarean. Why? Because we're coaching her to hold her breath and force push her baby out, which is completely against biology. And it pisses me off. This is like a soapbox. I could talk for days about this. It is so damaging. It's not physiological. And they don't even do this in other countries. Like if you go to Great Britain, they don't tell women to push, ever. They don't even use the word push. But here, 10 centimeters, get in bed, pull up your knees, hold your breath, push, and you got nurses yelling at you. And it's so disrupted. And your pelvic floor, you're using your pelvic floor to push. And in order to hold your breath, to push, you have to tighten your pelvic floor. Well, your pelvic floor is then going to tighten around baby's head and prevent that baby from moving down. So that's why you see these women pushing for hours in the hospital, getting exhausted. Their baby's going to fetal distress, and then they get cesareans, which I know wasn't the case for you. You had a long pushing phase, but because of the nuchal hand, that creates a whole different situation with the aerodynamics of birth, kind of messes that up a little bit. But the body is so intelligent, and it knows if you can learn to relax and move your pelvic floor out of the way with your breath and use your breath to guide baby down and out, it's going to open and dilate you a lot faster. And really, it's a matter of getting out of the way, because the uterus is the engine. The uterus pushes. The uterus is a bag of muscles designed to push your baby out like a piston. But if you hold your breath and push, you're actually going to interfere and make it take longer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so passionate about this too, because I never had to be told to push my body. And I'm sure the nuchal hand being that my son, both of his hands were on his face.
Both of them were.
Both, yeah.
Oh,
so when he was coming, well, he was like an X over his face, like no photos, please, like no paparazzi. It's so funny. But so my midwife had to like move his hands away to like be able to birth him. But I had the fetal ejection reflex. So where my body was just pushing for me. And so I just worked with what my body gave me, and I didn't have to ever be told. And it's like what you said, it's the muscle memory. It's just once I knew what was going on, and I looked at my midwife and I was like, something's happening and I haven't felt this before. And she's like, okay, tell me what's going on and what do you feel? I'm like, my body, it was like I almost felt like I was throwing up, but opposite, like down, and my body was just working and laboring him down and down. And so I just got to work with that, and that was an insane experience because it was just, I'd look down, I'd see my belly doing it just itself, you know? But that experience was so beautiful because it was such a testament of like, this is what my body knows to do. I don't have to tell it. I don't have to be told. I don't have to have someone screaming in my face. Yeah. Like my body, and I love what you say in your course. You say you shouldn't be pushing until you feel like your body is like making you push, until you're at that moment where you're like, it's doing it for you and you can't help but not. That's when your baby's ready to come out, you know? And that was my experience. So it was truly wild. So for the mamas who are listening or women who are about to be mamas or have another birth, I would love for you to share, just kind of like to wrap it up of like, if they're listening and they're wanting to pursue this, of having a pain-free physiological birth, where's like the first place for them to start with you? You know, I know that you have lots of information on social media, you have the course, you know, is it the course and what can they expect from that? I'd love for you to explain because I'm super passionate about your course and I feel like, you know, we spend all this time going to school, studying things, and it's like, especially as women, this is something that if you're going to choose to have one child, two children, you know, it's like you should understand it. You know, if you're going to go and take a test to get certified in something, you're going to want to understand the process. It's like if your body's going to go through this monumental experience, understanding it, I think is super key. You know, just at least knowing some of the basics. But that's why I feel like every woman should take your course, because then they're going to be able to have that understanding and they're going to know that like they don't have to be in fear. So where can someone start? You know, is it the course? What does that look like? Give them the starting point.
Yeah, I mean, well, I have tons of free resources, obviously, on my Instagram at Pain Free Birth. And so you can always check those out. Tons of birth videos and stories. And I share student testimonials all the time and stories of birth stories because they're so unique and all different, and lots of just practical information there. And then I have my Pain Free Birth e-course available. That's on my website, painfreebirth.com. And I think you're going to put a link in the show notes, perhaps, I think, so you guys can find that really easily. That's available. I also have, now it's really fun, I have a birth partner boot camp course. It's like a little mini course. I don't know if you guys even had that.
No, we didn't.
Oh my gosh.
But that sounds amazing.
I'm going to send you access to that. It's so cool. So for the birth partners who are like inspired by Kyle, like, hey, like, and Eric is saying, hey, he was like a champion. Like if you want to be that for your wife, I just recently released a birth partner boot camp, which I sometimes have as like an add-on. You can get some of the modules or like as an, you know, in the cart, you can add it on for not a lot of money. It's like maybe $75 or something, but it's got modules in there specifically for the partners to learn how to physically support their partner, energetically support their partner. Like it's like all my tips and tricks I use as a doula. If you had me there in your birth as a doula, I'd be showing you how to do this. And I have a whole like labor practice tutorial. I've got, you know, like how to advocate for your wife in labor, because that is so important, especially if you're planning a hospital birth. You need to know this. Yeah. And this is probably just as important, if not more important, for the partners to understand how to advocate, even more so maybe than the mother in labor, because there's going to be periods in the labor where mom is in another world, just like we want her to be. We don't want her in her head. And that's when you might need to, the partner, step in and say, oh, you know what, we don't want to clamp that cord. Oh, you know what, we asked for hands-off delivery. Or, you know what, my wife wants to be in hands and knees. She's not going to get on her back. You know, so your voice, your authority in the birthing room is you're at the top of the totem pole. You're not at the bottom. And so understanding what authority you have, what rights you have in labor, and how to speak to doctors and nurses and advocate for what you want is super important. And that's important in a home birth too, to know like energetically, how do I tap in? Like you did so well, Kyle. Yeah. Like, what's my wife feeling? Being able to read her face. Like, you know your wife more than anybody else. You know when she's battling something like, I think she needs me. And that intuition is so key. And so the Pain-Free Birth course covers all the physiology that we've been talking about, the hormones, that cascade of hormones. It has the whole first module is really doing an assessment of our cultural conditioning and what fears we're carrying into birth, so that we can dismantle those and really just choose, like, do I want to keep carrying this? Is this serving me, or is this something that I can let go of and write my own birth story? You know, and it's got the breathing techniques, how to have a pain-free contraction every time, how to breathe in first stage, how to breathe in second stage with pushing, a full anatomy, like description and visuals with the pelvis and the baby to know. And I hear raving reviews about this because women are like, I knew exactly what my body was doing when it was pushing, and it was so intense, but I wasn't scared because I remember that module and you showing me how that baby's head like rotates and does these internal rotations and the cardinal movements of labor, and you can even feel some of them if you know what
I felt them.
Yeah. If you know what to look for and you know about that, it's so empowering to know my body is doing exactly what it's supposed to. And that doubt and fear of like, is this normal? Isn't there, because you've done your educational research and you know, oh, this is exactly what my body does. And you can then partner with it instead of getting scared and tensing up. So there's lots of anatomy and lots of really practical pain coping, really pain transcending techniques. I don't really call it pain management because if you don't have the pain to begin with, you don't have to manage it. If you learn how to transcend it and you learn how to, you're like, it's like elevating above the fear and the pain when you can train your mind to do it, because your body can do almost anything. It's our minds that get in the way. And so and then a whole modules on the third stage of labor, lots of work about advocacy in both of those courses, especially the pain-free birth and how to advocate. There's scripts in there about how to advocate for
it's so good.
Your birth. Like just lots, every module, there's 9 modules. It's about 10 hours total, lots of bonuses. Every module has an activation. So I take you into breath work. I take you into drawing your labor, writing your birth story. Like we've got all the hands-on practical things. So you're going to emerge from this feeling so confident. And that's my wish. Whether, even if you don't purchase the course, like I just want women to know you don't have to be scared of birth and that you're created for this. And I want every woman to be able to walk into that labor room, wherever they're birthing, wherever they feel safe, and know, like, fully confident, like, I got this. And even knowing, like, if things happen and don't go according to plan, that's okay. Like, I feel confident to know that I can advocate for myself. I can ask for what I want. I can receive support. I can let support in. I can trust my body. I can trust my baby. It's all going to be, it's what I'm created to do. And so that's really my goal. I want to shift the whole global culture of birth to helping women understand what they're really capable of and born for.
And you're so doing that. Like you really are. And I do want to say about the work that you do too is like there is a spiritual component, and I think what I experienced in birth was it was spiritual. I felt like there was a thin veil between me and heaven. Like it felt very just otherworldly, and I think every woman does deserve to have that experience. But you really talk a lot about that in the course too, because it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's mental, and it's spiritual. And I think you cover all of that so well in the course. I love it. Where can people find you and find these resources? I know they're going to be running to find them. So where can they find all of that?
Yeah, it's at Pain-Free Birth on Instagram, or painfreebirth.com is the website. And all the links are also in my bio. So I made it real simple. Everything's Pain-Free Birth.
And we're gonna all, it's like a mantra, we all just keep saying that. It's like we're speaking that into existence. Pain-free birth,
Yeah.
I love it.
It's definitely counterculture, right? And that's kind of why I went with that, because I was like, I'm just gonna hit that belief right head on. And even if
I love it,
not everybody has 100% pain-free birth. Even my labors were 100% pain-free. There were, like I said, pushing, or that early labor with my first, where there were things I had to figure out. And so it's not about the pain or like getting this, trophy that like, oh, I had a pain-free birth. It's like, no, were you empowered? Did you know that you could do this? You were confident. You knew what to do. And that confidence translates in your body many times as pain-free or ecstasy or bliss or spiritual, having these spiritual encounters or awakenings. I mean, those are the stories that get me the most. Like you said, birth is so spiritual, and that's really what makes my course different, I believe, than every other course out there. I'm not just going to give you head knowledge. I'm not just going to tell you, like, step 1, do this, step 2, do that. Here's what, the first stage of labor is. Here's the second stage. It's like, no, this is a spiritual journey. And what I've found more than anything is that women need support on that journey. And that support looks it has so much more to it than just, hey, let me give you a bunch of head knowledge. That's actually just like gathering more head knowledge is really just a symptom that you're trying to control a natural process. If I see women that are so intensely researching like everything and making sure they know everything, but there's this whole other spiritual side that we really neglect in our modern day culture, this spiritual journey of birth and this journey into motherhood. And that's really what my goal is in this course, is to really highlight both the very practical, techniques, and couple that with the spiritual understanding of what's really happening at a deep, visceral level in my body and in my heart, so that I can partner with what I was always designed and created to do.
Yeah. And that was my greatest work, because I used to be the head space, head knowledge. I'm going to control it all. And that is, I think, one of the biggest lessons that came out of that whole experience for me was learning to let that go and to drop in and to be in my body and to let all of this head stuff just like fade away and just like be present with myself and my baby. So
I love it. That is the work right there.
That is the work,
Erica. Like that is the work we have to do as women. And it's so much more than just like pain management or pain techniques. It's like what you just said. It's like learning. It's not all up here. No. We can't think our baby out. It's like deeper than that. And it's this encounter. It's an encounter. It's a transformation.
And it's worth it. And I want to say that to anyone who's listening, like, it's worth it, because I think society has told us like, oh, like you don't need a trophy, like it can be easier. It's like, it's not only just worth it, but it is blissful, and it really is an incredible experience. So Karen, I'm like, I could talk to you all day long. I could hear you talk about birth all day long. I know our listeners are going to find so much value from this, and I can't wait to hear so many stories come from this of women who choose to step into this space and choose to have a physiological birth and a pain-free birth because of what you've shared today. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to hear those stories.
Thank you so much for listening to the Trust Issues podcast. If you love this episode, please come over to Instagram. Let us know, what did you take away? What is the top thing that you are going to change maybe for your next birth, or something that you learned from Karen today? We'll see you guys next time.